Actor Joe Pesci has had himself an unbelievable career that spanned 5 decades and showed his ability to take unlikable characters and make you fall in love with them. First, there was Raging Bull in 1980 that earned him an Oscar nomination. Then 10 years later, he'd finally take that Oscar home for his performance as Tommy DeVito in Goodfellas. And that's without even mentioning his fan-favorite turns in franchises like Lethal Weapon and Home Alone. In these videos, we don't reveal any addresses, and even though I've done a house tour of my own place, please do not show up at any private residences because it's not safe for anyone. By the early 90s, Pesci had already transformed himself from the son of a bartender and forklift driver into an Academy Award-winning thespian worth millions of dollars. In 1994, he dropped some of that net worth on waterfront roots in the seaside community of Lavallette in his home state of New Jersey, overlooking Barnegat Bay. Located a 2+ hour drive south of Midtown Manhattan, Pesci spent $850,000 to acquire this spacious and, at the time, modern home that he would decorate with memorabilia from his many different films. But before we get into those details, let's take a long look at the exterior of this place. Sitting right smack dab on the edge of the bay, just a short jaunt from the ocean, Pesci's residence was originally built in 1990 in a style that's pretty flashy, not to mention a little bit punk. If you want me to get a little bit more technical, this home is what happens when Art Deco meets the type of postmodern suburban style that was popular in the late 80s. Constructed out of 2 stories, the house sits on a double lot of almost 1/3 of an acre and boasts 8 bedrooms as well as 8.5 baths and nearly 7,200 square feet of interior space. Dramatically different than any of its neighbors, Pesci's house is what happens when you create a mishmash of over-the-top style, and it would have been a natural fit for some of his equally over-the-top gangster characters. The facade of the home kind of looks like an asymmetrical wedding cake thanks to its buttercream white walls, soaring barrel-vaulted roof, and all of the curved glass, some of which is mirrored for privacy. Meanwhile, down below is a wrought iron fence with an electric sliding gate as well as a number of towering trees, a multi-tiered fountain, a parking lot-sized motor court, and a front door that's been painted in an eye-catching shade of turquoise. Walking in the home, there's the tightly curled floating staircase with its metal banisters that sets the tone for everything else you're about to see. And just in case you think those stairs look a little dangerous for a man about to enter his 80s, well, don't worry, because this place also comes with its very own elevator. Also situated in the midst of that central foyer is a barber's chair that acts as a reminder for Joe of where he came from, since one of his very first jobs was working as a barber. All throughout the rest of the house, the interior finishes are like something out of a love letter to the 80s. I'm talking open-plan living spaces with a mix of white ceramic tile and wall-to-wall carpeting. Like in the home's 2-part open living room, which features 2 baby grand pianos in alternating black and white, nestled into a yin and yang-like arrangement. Over in the comfy-looking media room, Joe's walls have been decorated with posters from his various films. And there's even a Lethal Weapon 3 pinball machine in here for him to play around with, just in case he gets tired of staring at images of himself. As for the kitchen, it boasts black granite counters with a mirror finish, simple white cabinets, and white tile floors that allow the rest of the furnishings to do the talking, like that immense golden light fixture hanging just above the dining room table that's big enough to seat 12 and includes its very own Lazy Susan to pass around food with ease. And because one is never enough, Joe's home includes a second culinary space not far from the first that serves more as an eat-in kitchen, boasting a table big enough for 8 built-in china cabinets, a 70-bottle wine rack, and an additional wine cooler. When it comes to the one space you're all probably the most interested in, Joe Pesci's bedroom, you won't be disappointed to learn that not only does the room come with its very own private balcony, the entire suite also boasts a luxury bathroom and a private office, even if the exact placement of his bed leaves a bit to be desired. I mean, right in the middle of the room and not against a wall? Come on, Joe, what are you? A caveman? Last but not least, if you were to step out back, you'll find yourself on a vast deck that surrounds the home's heated swimming pool and spa. Beyond that is maybe the property's most coveted highlight, a private dock with deep water dockage, which means that Pesci could park a big old boat right in his very own backyard. Speaking of docks, Pesci would find himself in some hot water with his community over recent years, thanks to a conscientious argument that revolved around the length of 2 new docks his neighbors were looking to build. On October 2nd, 2019, Pesci was one of 30 homeowners to send a letter of opposition to a local council, urging them to reconsider the construction of 2 new docks that would extend 315 feet out into Barnegat Bay. More than just that, at the end of his letter, Joe specifically urged state officials to take this opportunity to stop this trend now by denying the pending applications before it's too late. What exactly Joe meant by before it's too late, he never elaborated on, but for a man who's played such violent characters in the past, it definitely comes across a little more threatening than it might. Then again, it's not like he doesn't have a point. The crux of Joe's argument is that by more than doubling the length of the original docks, the new ones would block views of the bay currently enjoyed by other homeowners. And more importantly, it would force boaters, kayakers, and paddlers to operate in waters much farther away from the land, putting them at risk in the wake of large watercraft. After hearing from Joe as well as many other neighbors, the Attorney General of New Jersey was set to rule on the matter, but Pesci wound up deciding not to stick around to hear the verdict. Instead, that very same year, he decided to put his home of nearly 3 decades on the market. Ready for a change and no doubt eager to cash out to enjoy his golden years, Joe Pesci put his longtime home on the market in late 2019 for a pie-in-the-sky price tag of $6.5 million. For those of you paying attention at home, that is more than 7.5 times what he originally paid for the pad in the early 90s. Unfortunately for Joe, nobody bid, at least not at first. But Joe is nothing if not patient, probably more than a little stubborn, so he waited out the market and never once dropped his asking price. 2 years later, a potential buyer stepped up to the plate and Joe must have turned into the fast-talking madman we've always known him to be in the movies. Because he managed to sell the property himself without a real estate agent for exactly what he was looking for. Not to mention, this was good enough to make this the highest priced real estate sale in Lavallette's history. But here's the thing. Even after all of that, Joe's home wasn't bought by someone so that they could live in it. Instead, whoever bought the property wound up demolishing the entire thing. After housing the neighborhood's most famous resident for so long, it's kinda sad to see Joe's former home totally destroyed. As for Pesci, his representatives have suggested that the Jersey native will be headed back to California to retire and live in year-round sunshine while partaking in some of his favorite golf courses. We don't know exactly where he's living now, but if that news ever leaks, we will be sure to update you accordingly. For now, that'll bring this Joe Pesci house tour to a close. Thanks for watching today's episode, and before you head out, consider answering the following question. If you were convinced that your home was worth more than the market suggested, how long would you be willing to hold out before dropping the price? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications to make sure you never miss an episode. My name is Kara the Vampire Slayer. Follow me on Instagram to chat further, and I'll see you all in another one. Bye!